Good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning on Ludicrous feed. I just want to start off by thanking all the subscribers we've had so far on this channel. I know it's only been a very early start. We've only been around for about 2 weeks, but I want to thank you for all your support so far. Thank you for all your comments. Now, we had a very good response to the Model 3 video I uploaded last night. It basically showed all the Model 3s in the Fremont car park next to the factory at Tesla. Very exciting. There's thousands of Model 3s ready to be shipped out, which is great. So this morning I wanted to do another video on what we know about the Model 3, just to give you a rundown on the specs, what the estimated delivery times are for those cars that Tesla have told us about. And I just wanted to quickly compare that car to an equivalent car in terms of cost in Australia. And then I'll quickly talk about the Model 3 compared to the Model S in terms of the differences. So let's start off with what we know about the Model 3 in terms of its specifications. So we've been told that the Model 3 will come in two different models, or two different battery capacities, I guess you could say. The 50 kilowatt hour and the 70 kilowatt hour. I think currently they're only making the 50 kilowatt hour version, and the 70 kilowatt hour version will be made later this year. The 50 kilowatt hour version will get you about 220 miles, which is about 350 kilometers. You can do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in about 5 seconds. And I guess the major feature about the Model 3 is that there is no center dashboard. So what you see in front of me here, and in most conventional cars, will be gone, and there will be a center screen about the size of this screen as well, but turned on its side in a landscape configuration, sitting roughly on top of where the dash should be, which means that the panel here will be basically empty. And I've seen pictures of it. It's interesting. All the stats in terms of your speedometer, odometer, power usage, all those things will be incorporated in the screen with the radio, with the air conditioning, with the map. So that's all sort of a center console. And I've read reviews online where it takes about probably a few minutes to get over. After that, it's quite easy to drive. I've seen a couple of Model 3s since my road trip to California and the west coast of the USA last year. So the first time I saw it was at the LA Auto Show in Los Angeles. That was pretty cool. Obviously there were a lot of people crowding around the Model 3, so I couldn't get quite a good look at it. But I did see the center screen, and it certainly looked a bit odd to me having the front here empty, but I'd love to drive one, I guess, eventually to really see what it feels like. The second time I saw it was at the Fremont factory itself, because we did a factory tour. We were privileged enough to be invited because we were Tesla Model S owners. And it was one of the first 30 that Elon Musk had released to his employees. It was sitting at the Fremont supercharger. It looks small compared to the Model S, obviously. I would say it's comparable to a Honda Civic, if I could use an equivalent car currently that I know of. In terms of price, I think the Honda Civic is a bit cheaper, but I'll talk about that a bit later on in this video. The owner was nice enough to open the doors for us to have a look at. It certainly felt, on first inspection, quite nice. The build quality was reasonable, which I will talk about later on as well, because there have been a few critics, I know, since its release. But I guess it felt like a small Model S. And the center dash again looked pretty good, sitting on top of the center screen sitting on top of the where the dash should be. Yeah, so again, I didn't drive it that time, but I obviously would love to do it just to give you a better idea of what it feels like. In terms of the range, 220 miles is pretty good. That's about 350 kilometers, and that's rated by the EPA in America. I think just from experience, when they rate it that high, it's usually at its optimum range. So I reckon you're probably going to get about 300 if you're lucky for day-to-day usage in the city. 300 kilometers a day is pretty good. Come on, like for most city driving, you're gonna get pretty good use out of it. And of course, as I keep harping on about electric cars, you can charge the car at night, so you can always wake up with a full tank of fuel, so to speak. And you shouldn't run into trouble in most situations. And Tesla has already said that most of their superchargers around the world, including Australia, are placed about 200 kilometers apart from each other. So again, you're not really going to run into trouble having a range of 300 kilometers. In terms of acceleration, I mean, that's pretty quick. You're never going to get that quick, really, in most traffic situations. In terms of charging, I've gone through this with the Model S, but 300 kilometers will take usually about 6 to 7 hours of charging overnight. So that's assuming you run the battery down to zero, which you usually won't on most days, from experience again. In terms of upkeep, I guess that's a big question. With so many Model 3s coming out, I guess Tesla are being questioned about their service and the reliability when it does all eventually roll out. Currently in Sydney, there's only one store and service station, service room, I should say, with 6 superchargers, with the promise of more coming on the south side in Broadway, which is closer to the CBD. So 6 superchargers currently is probably not enough if the Model 3s are coming out, and the staff look pretty busy already in there with the service, so I think they're going to have to step up their game in a couple of years' time when the 3 does hit our shores eventually. Now, Tesla have said they will be aiming to produce 5,000 per month. That was back when it released the Model 3 late last year. I think currently they've only released, from memory, less than 2,000 on the road. So they're nowhere near production capacity just yet, but we know Elon Musk and Tesla have a reputation for over-promising and under-delivering in the early stages. So I'm not too surprised at this stage, but I think it should hit our shores next year, even though they promised right-hand drive vehicles should hit the UK and Australia late this year, but I think just from experience it probably will come out next year. Now I was going to talk about comparing the Model 3s to equivalent vehicles on the road currently. So I talked about the Honda Civic, and it certainly felt like one and looked like one in terms of its shape and in terms of its size when I saw it in the wild. The Civic's a pretty good car, but it is half the price. You can get a brand new Civic base model for about $25,000. Now the Model 3 has been promised to be about $35,000 US, so you're looking at about 50,000 Australian dollars. Minus 10,000, given for a 5-year loan of a vehicle, you're going to save about that much in fuel. So for about 40,000, I looked up online this morning. You can get a Volkswagen Passat, you can get a high-end WRX, you can get a high-end Holden Commodore, you can get a very souped-up Camry. So you know, for a sedan or a hatch that size, you get a high-end sort of high-end kind of vehicles for $50,000. So it's not, it's not super cheap. It's a bit higher than what the mass market expect to pay for a vehicle this size and capacity and performance. But of course, the added premium is the fact that it's electric, doesn't accept fuel, and you'll save on that as well. Now, whether the Australian government will come out eventually to subsidise the Model 3, I don't know. I guess it depends on what the feeling is like generally next year when it hits our shores. But the way the current government is looking, I don't think that'll be the case. They're very much into fossil fuel. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch over the next 24 months, I guess. I want to quickly just run through the Model 3 versus the Model S. Now, those of you that have been following the Model 3 news will note that just before its release to its employees last year, Elon Musk did kind of play down the 3 a little bit. He didn't explicitly say it was a budget version, but he did allude to the fact that the Model S was still a great car, and it's still the flagship of the Tesla fleet. So obviously, at a price of $35,000 US, they are aiming for the mass market, so it's not going to be a luxury vehicle, or a performance vehicle for that matter. So, yeah, I guess it'll be a budget version of the S, if you can crudely call it that. Its performance certainly is not as good. And capacity is lower as well. So those two things, it probably won't affect day-to-day driving for most people, but I guess you need to always have a luxury version of a base model for most car manufacturers, I guess. There's been a bit of criticism too for the Model 3. I've just read last couple of weeks from renowned veteran car manufacturers saying that the build quality is not so good. It just sort of poking fun of the fact that the door gaps and the boot gaps weren't so great. One side is close, the other side is quite big. Look, honestly, you do notice it a little bit in the Model S, even on this car. Certainly there are gaps around the place compared to the luxury vehicle equivalents. But I'll say one thing, is that the reliability has been fantastic. I haven't actually owned a luxury vehicle before prior to this car, but I know plenty of people, including my own family members, who've had luxury vehicles. And look, they're not without their problems. They do break down. They do have the reliability issues. So I've only brought this car in maybe 2 or 3 times at the most in the last 18 months for minor inconveniences. Nothing to do with the actual drive itself. It's just cosmetic, really, which I'm a bit fussy about personally. But so I think the reliability of the car will certainly override the fact that the build quality at this stage is not as good. And look, Tesla's still a young company; they are learning. And I've also heard that the future Model S versions are a bit better as well in terms of their build quality. So that's not an issue I'm too worried about. I think the 3 will get better with future iterations as well. So there you have it, guys. That's kind of my quick update on the Model 3 and what I've read in the last few weeks. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. I'll certainly have more Model 3 news as they come to light. If you've enjoyed these videos, please take a moment to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I'm really trying to build the follower base. Really trying to help the revolution in this country to bring electric vehicles in. I certainly believe in this form of transport. Please leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I love having a chat with my subscribers. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will speak to all of you very soon. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching, and thank you for helping us to bring the electric vehicle revolution to Australia. If you've enjoyed our videos, please take a moment to hit subscribe. We would really appreciate it. If you're close to buying a brand new Tesla, then lucky you. Use one of our promo codes on screen to unlock special goodies from Tesla. Happy charging!